Hi, folks, and welcome to the Week 5 edition of Nittany Next. Penn State hosts Indiana on Saturday, and we're going to take a look at that game, last week's game at Villanova, but I think we have to begin this story with last year's game at Indiana, where Penn State opened the truncated and delayed 2020 season. In that game, that bizarre, amazing game, Penn State had 277 more total yards than the Hoosiers, 11 more first downs, had the ball for almost 41 of the game's 60 minutes. They outran Indiana. They outpassed Indiana. They did better on third down. They did better on fourth down. They had more sacks. Yes, they lost a turnover battle, but only by one. They had 3 turnovers. Indiana had 2. It is almost impossible, given the overall set of facts in that game, for Penn State to have lost it, no matter what else is true, except that in this case, some really unique things are true. One of them is that Penn State scored a touchdown near the end of regulation that it shouldn't have, when taking a knee outside the end zone would have allowed them to run out the clock. Game over. Instead, the Hoosiers got the ball back one more time, actually more than one more time, and an extremely bizarre series of events ensued, leading to overtime and finally leading to this.
They say he hit the pylon and Indiana wins.
We're going to have to look at this one, but it looks like Penn got really close and dove at the end.
Couple things that I want to point out here. One, this is Indiana quarterback Michael Penix, and he's running for the 2-point conversion that gave Indiana a 36-35 victory. A couple things I want to point out here. This was an amazing athletic play by Penix, but it was also a genius play mentally in a weird way. Watch him in the middle of this sort of frantic, all-out physical effort change hands with the ball from his right throwing hand to the hand close to the sideline, which is, he's right-handed, that's his hand, the one that you're supposed to fundamentally be holding the ball in, and changing it to his left hand, because otherwise he probably would not have been able to get the ball close enough to the pylon to let the refs make a call. And the second point is that he didn't score. I mean, that's just the truth. It's incredibly close. We're talking about small fractions of both an inch and a second. But if you watch this very closely, it's super slow motion, high def, whatever, it's pretty clear that he barely, the ball hits the ground before it hits the pylon that represents the corner of the end zone. So on the field, it was ruled a successful 2-point conversion. But of course it went to the replay booth, and you know what that means. It's going to come down to not really looking at the play, but looking at it through the prism of overturned or upheld. And you know how that usually goes. If they would have called this no good in real time, I'm 98% sure, and so are you, that they would have called it no good, and they would have upheld the ruling, and Penn State wins the game. Anyway, the reason why I'm talking about this at such great length, and ultimately talking about the difference between overturned and upheld, is how much this result appeared to resonate for both sides. Indiana went 6-1 in the regular season, their best season in many years. Their only loss was to Ohio State, and even that was just by a touchdown. Penn State never recovered, or at least, it was 0-5 at one point, which it has never been before. Its players have acknowledged that cracks in the program and its culture seemed to be happening at the time. But here we are, a year later, and all of that seems to have washed out. Penn State is 4-0, ranked 4th in the country. Indiana is 2-2. They opened at Iowa against a very good Iowa team and really got smacked around, and they're struggling. And Michael Penix, still the quarterback, is struggling. And they come to each other in much different places as they head into Saturday's game. Now, of course, James Franklin, Penn State's head coach, has refused to acknowledge to any degree that last year's game creates any sort of revenge narrative. That's off the table for him, at least publicly. I think because he is so insistent that everything about the 2020 season was an aberration and should be dismissed. He is very, very emphatic about that, but I guarantee you his players remember. Penn State has played mostly great defense so far. They've got an excellent quarterback play from Sean Clifford, and his wide receivers have been terrific. They have been most efficient and explosive in the passing game. Pretty much aced the first month of the season in every area except one big one. They have been utterly unable to run the ball when they need to and when everyone in the stadium knows it. Even against Villanova last week, they couldn't do it. It's easy, very easy, to blame the offensive line and say the offensive line ought to just fire off the ball and push the other guys backwards, and they ought to be able to run it a little bit just by doing that. But I don't think it's that simple. Linebackers have had huge games so far against Penn State. And Indiana, by the way, has a great one, a kid named Micah McFadden. So something to watch Saturday will be how Penn State locates and deals with him. And also worth watching, and really the way to see this that's bigger than just the offensive line getting pushed is how the new offensive coordinator, Mike Yurcich, tries to create indecision in defenses, misdirect them, spread them out, otherwise find a way to create push and space up front to run the damn ball. That's Saturday's story, because Penn State is going to have to figure out something in this area before it goes to Iowa next week. There you have it. It's Penn State, Indiana, the sequel, another primetime game Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. in Happy Valley at Beaver Stadium. I will be there, and I invite you to watch, pay attention to all of our coverage at LNP, LancasterOnline.com, of Penn State football this week and throughout the season. See you later.